Well, guys, the NFL draft is coming on, and we had to set through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before we found out where Shedeur Sanders was going to land. Now, when you're talking about collusion, this was collusion at its finest. But we're going to talk about all that here next, here on the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Well, guys, like Shedeur Sanders said, it's all about perfect timing and it's in God's hand. Now, we sat here and watched the NFL draft and we watched Shedeur Sanders just keep slipping and slipping and slipping all the way to the fifth round. Now, the NFL draft had a lot of surprises, had a lot of ups and downs, but for Shedeur Sanders, for him to keep believing and keep the faith and never wavered in the NFL draft shows that this kid has it mentally and physically. Now, you guys, you can sit here and tell me, or you can't tell me that Shedeur Sanders, outside of Cameron Ward, was the second best quarterback available in the NFL draft. And what we sat here and witnessed about Shedeur Sanders slipping all the way to the fifth round is diabolical. Now, there were several teams that needed a quarterback. Several teams didn't need a quarterback. But for the teams that needed a quarterback and just completely pass up on Shedeur Sanders is mind-boggling. Now, we all know the first pick in the NFL draft went to the Tennessee Titans, which they selected Cameron Ward out of Miami. Now, Cleveland traded their picks and Jacksonville was on the clock. Jacksonville took Travis Hunter. But that third pick with the New York Giants, knowing the New York Giants needed a franchise quarterback, and they passed up on Shedeur Sanders. And then you get down to that fifth pick with the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns completely went opposite and went with an offensive tackle and Will Campbell. And then you sitting there looking at the Raiders at 6, knowing that, you know, they need a quarterback, they need a running back. So they went with Ashton Jeanty. And then the Jets, we don't know what the Jets are going to do. The Jets possibly need a quarterback. They passed up on Shedeur Sanders. Now you get down to the New Orleans Saints at number 9. New Orleans Saints passed up on Shedeur Sanders. Now you have to wait, and then you get all the way down to where everybody thought that Shedeur Sanders had a possibility ending up at, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, they went totally opposite, went with a defensive tackle and Derek Harmon out of Oregon to address their needs. And then after that, the Giants was back on the clock. They traded up, traded back into the draft, into the first round, and they went with Jackson Dart out of Mississippi. Now, we know what Jackson Dart brings to the table. We've seen the records he broke of Eli Manning at Ole Miss. But to say Jackson Dart is a better talent than Shedeur Sanders is just diabolical. Now, everybody said about Shedeur Sanders don't have the arm strength. But if you're looking at basically sold off of tape of what Shedeur Sanders brought to Jackson State, HBCU, turned that program around. Then they went to a Power 5 in Colorado, turned that franchise around, and to put up the numbers that he did and everything that Shedeur Sanders did, and you looking at the tape on Shedeur Sanders, he has all the intangibles that an NFL quarterback needs and what people rave about. And to pass up on Shedeur Sanders that many times, that lets me know that Collusion was at its finest. Now, I don't know if people think black people just sit around and make up stuff, but the theory I have is these NFL owners got together and said, we're going to make an example. We're going to teach this kid a lesson. And, with Shedeur Sanders, his confidence and his swag that he got, his bravado and things like that, it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, with the flexing of the watch that he did at Colorado. And he just has confidence. You know who his daddy is? Deion Primetime Sanders. The fruit don't fall far from the tree. And what they did is they got together and they said, we're not going to draft this guy. We're going to let him sit around and we're going to make an example out of him. Because when you got to that New Orleans pick, and New Orleans knowing they need a franchise quarterback, and they took Tyler Shuck, and if you've seen the tape on Tyler Shuck, and you telling me that New Orleans picked Tyler Shuck over Shedeur Sanders, that's asinine. Shedeur Sanders was the second best quarterback available in this NFL draft. And for him to set all the way to the 5th round, 144th pick, and that tells me that collusion was involved. So what they saying is, Shedeur Sanders already is wearing NFL type jewelry. He has a lot of money from the NIL deals and all the sponsorship that he has. And they trying to teach this young man a lesson. Outside of his daddy, they don't want to, give, Shedeur and his daddy this power and stuff like that, thinking he can come into the NFL and just run it the way he wants to run it. So he had to sit there and wait. But through the whole process, Shedeur Sanders never wavered. Never wavered. He kept his faith. He had a prank call in there with the defensive coordinator of Atlanta Falcons' son. He overcame that, didn't phase him, just waited and waited, and his name was finally called by the Cleveland Browns. And why I say it's collusion is because Cleveland Browns, in that 3rd round, they took Dillon Gabriel. Now, you tell me that Dillon Gabriel is a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders? Come on, guys. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders here. Now, this guy, Dillon Gabriel, he is injured, right? So now you get into the 5th round. What did Cleveland do? Cleveland traded some of their draft picks to get into the 5th round, and then they took Shedeur Sanders at the 144th pick. Now, guys, I want y'all to listen to what Shedeur Sanders said after he was picked. Take a listen.
You can't control that, so you just gotta remain positive, stay happy at all times, and know God got you. I knew the whole time God had me, so I wasn't really panicking because I understood it's about perfect timing.
Now, he said he understood it. It's about perfect timing. Now, let's take a listen to what the general manager said of Cleveland.
Message to him, it's really all this. It's like, look, got to come in and work, and you got to come in and compete. That's the message. Nothing's given. Given the nature of the weekend for him, relative to, let's say, external expectation versus what happened, we did tell him that it really doesn't matter where you picked, it's what you do from that point forward. Because that's the reality for all the guys that we selected this weekend. In terms of his reaction, I just say it was probably a mixture of gratitude, relief, and determination. That would probably be the best way to characterize it. But he's certainly ready to go.
Now, you heard what the general manager said. He's certainly ready to go. Now, guys, I want y'all to take a look at Cleveland Browns quarterback war room. Now, right now, Cleveland Brown has Deshaun Watson. He's coming off an injury. They got Kenny Pickett. They got Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco will be 41 years old in the NFL season. And then you got Dillon Gabriel, like I said, that they drafted, and he's injured right now. And then you got Shedeur Sanders. Now, to all 5 of these quarterbacks, now when you get into the 4th and 5th round, you're looking into the backup territory. But coming into this season, it's got a lot of fuel to the fire for Shedeur Sanders. And out of all 5 of these quarterbacks, and you looking at the quarterback war room, to me personally, there's no competition for Shedeur Sanders. He just got to go in there and work and prove. It's against all odds. Like you said, it's perfect timing. This is his journey. This is the path that he had to take. And he's accepting all challenges. And I know with the confidence that this young man got, I know he can go in there and he can become a backup to a Deshaun Watson or Joe Flacco. Now, Joe Flacco be 41 years old. Out of all these quarterbacks, Joe Flacco got the strongest arm. Out of all these quarterbacks that you see on this screen, Shedeur Sanders got all the intangibles that an NFL quarterback needs. Now, the competition is for Shedeur to lose. Shedeur's confidence in his ability and what he brings to the table will overcome everything that the naysayers were saying in the draft. Now, we heard everybody on X and all the NFL media personnel, they sat there, they couldn't believe how far Shedeur Sanders fell down in the draft. But at this time, Shedeur Sanders, the mentality that he has and the confidence that he has, I believe Shedeur Sanders, by week 5, will be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback. And like he said, it's perfect timing. He said he's not doing the music no more. He's focused. He just wants the ball. And the crazy thing about it is, like I said, collusion at its finest, and the NFL try to prove a point, but Shedeur Sanders, against all odds, will overcome this situation. And this is going to be even a better storyline when he overcomes everything that he had to go through in the NFL draft, everything that they said about him, all the doubters, all the haters, and Shedeur Sanders will prevail at the end of the day. I see everybody in the comments section, #salute. Guys, let me know what y'all think about the NFL draft and the collusion that Shedeur Sanders had to endure this whole weekend, waiting for his name to be called at 144th. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger, and we're going to catch you on the next one. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot, tell a friend and tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And this is going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap, and we're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.